and welcome to another episode of the Kids Media Club podcast. I'm Andy Williams. Emily, we've got some guests today.
Yeah, we do indeed. Unfortunately, Joe can't join us, but I was at Dingle a few weeks ago as I recorded, and I moderated a really interesting panel about toys. And in the course of organising that panel, I met Gavin Lawler from Innov8 Creative Academy, and I was also chatting to Chris Sticker. These two guys are collaborating on an IP at the moment called Deddy Bears. It was just a really interesting panel, and actually, nearly the conversation started as many things do at Dingle in the pub the night before, where I had met Gavin for the first time, and we started talking about his background. So he's not from the traditional media background, and he comes from an entrepreneur and toy inventor kind of background. So really different, and I just thought it'd be good to have them on. So thank you for joining us, Gavin and Chris.
No problem.
Nice to be here.
Happy to be here, yeah.
So Gavin, fascinated to jump in with you, right? Because like you one of your key products that has been of Innov8 Creative Academy has been the Irish Fairy door company, right? So this is little doors that you can buy for your kids, and your kids put them in the garden, and they can give them their letters and their worries and that kind of thing. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a really cool story, and I could talk about it for hours, but I'll give you the real shortened down version of it. In 2013, there was 400,000 and change of children that believed in Santa Claus. What a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
We managed to sell them 500,000 fairy doors at 20 quid each. And it was really nice to be able to commercialize an idea and leave a smile on a child's face. So it kind of worked really well on both ends of the spectrum. An incredible company at the time, didn't end very well, but it led to where I suppose our success today through learning, in the business.
Kind of just fascinating to know, what were your key learnings then?
Look, I mean, Ireland is a very small place. When you find the honey hole in terms of viability for a product, you can extract very quickly and very well, but it's really hard to sustain that. Sustained growth, you need the international markets. And that's what I learned, because we were very pigeonholed. We were Irish and we had the green jerseys on, and we were all about fairies, and there was Irish language, and it was mythical. And that did not, as much as we thought it might, it just didn't translate over into foreign countries. Like we thought, we had pockets of success, but we didn't have any real defined success. I mean, we had the Kardashians, we had the cast of Hook at the time, we had everybody, and the penetration off the back of that type of success, it just wasn't there. It just missed a little bit. So what it taught us was that we really do have to be more commercial than just that Irish kind of shamrock on a product, and being in that environment, we really did have to commercialize it to focus in on a more of a halo effect to kids all over the world.
Amazing.
Yeah, it needs to be a bit more international, I suppose.
Yeah, commercialized for different tastes,
Yeah. And it's kind of the Irishness is funny. Like, selling Irishness is kind of a funny thing, right? And I know what you're saying, like, obviously the dial and the language and all the rest, like, but it's much deeper. Like, you need to offer something maybe a bit deeper than that.
Look, it is a superpower, Emily. I'm telling you now, the Irishness is an absolute superpower. It's just the product's got to be as good, right?
Yeah, definitely. Come here. So you have over 250 IPs now in your current portfolio. How do you keep track of that?
Yeah, it's kind of all categorized. So it's a funny world we live in, right? So we've built up this reputation and a name for ourselves to be able to create really good IP in multiple different categories. So I suppose the buyers around the world now have gotten used to our type of innovation. They like to be on the top of trend, and trend is fickle, right? Trend comes and goes. So they rely on inventors like me who can spot trend early, jump in on it, and get out when the time is right. And I suppose we managed to kind of find that cadence to be able to do that. And it's led to us having really meaningful business with the top retailers in the world.
Right. And how do you kind of, what's the secret to that superpower of spotting trends early then?
it's not one person alone. And, you know, that's real cliche. And it's, you'll often hear that cheesy talk, and it's not me that I'm winning an Academy Award and it's down to my team. And, but it's true. Like, you know, there's a serious amount. We call it fishing, right? So it's hunting. It's elephant hunting. We're looking for that big kill that is really going to change industry and allow us to get positioning on a shelf. And honestly, it's two things. It's word of mouth and it's social media. That's it. There's no magic to it. It's literally, how deep can you go into a scroll that makes sense on a product?
What like what kind of things are you looking for when you're looking for a product? And like, what's the turnaround, Gavin? Because like usually, so when you're coming from entertainment, you're always told the toys take 3 years, right? Like, how are you managing to kind of have a pipeline that goes from trend to product so quickly? Like, how does that work?
Well, I'll give you an example that I hate talking about it because I don't necessarily love the trend, right? But so everybody in the world is familiar with 6-7, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I was the first person to bring 6-7 plush to the market. So we just developed it in, I'm going to say, 6-hour design turnaround, probably 9 days to sample. The sales team were selling from a deck. And then we sold a couple of 100,000 pieces. You know, it's not a huge amount of money. It might have worked out to $500,000 or $1 million at probably a 50 or 60% margin. But they're the little trends. I mean, if you do 20 of them, your profit margin is really healthy, right? So that would be one example of a trend, the 6-7. Other stuff is like Italian brain rot and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's more so like working with Chris and trying to figure out his world. It's what I'm really excited about and what I'm really trying to achieve is meaningful IP to market quickly without content. That's what really inspires me. That's what really I feel that we're trying to, you know, we're trying to, I suppose, shake the tree and see what happens with that type of IP. For instance, like, you know, I came up with an idea, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And, you know, we're going to LA now in a week and a half for spring preview the following year. And I'll be selling a brand called Flamingos. They're just like skeleton type flamingos that have this kind of fire effect, and they have collector cards and the trading card game. And I really pitched that IP into a trend. And there's a huge trend out there, a massive trend out there for Summerween. It's not Halloween anymore. We got Halloween, we got Summerween, and Summerween gives us a long season to sell into. So, I mean, flamingos are evergreen in the trend. And the whole skeleton thing is really cool for Halloween. So I'm blending trends and I'm breaking ground and I'm coming up with these new concepts, being brave and kind of putting myself out there as an inventor. The response to it is really, really good. The buyers are digging it because they see the same crap day in, day out. Another version of somebody else's crap. It's a series 25. It's a, you know, it's mundane. It's not spontaneous. It feels laggy. It feels draggy. It just doesn't hit. And I suppose if I was to kind of talk about it, like what are they doing? They're living in my moment, I would say. Like it's just my moment for IP, I guess. That's kind of, I know that sounds a little bit cocky or facetious, but look, I'm big enough and bold enough to say that we're great at lots of or some things and we're crap at other things. We just happen to be really good at trend spotting and to be able to commercialize that in a hurry, put it on a shop shelf and market the crap out of it. So we're getting not only sell into the retailers, but sell through from a consumer perspective.
Yeah, and listen, we were talking about, and like, I know what you're saying about bringing trend into something bigger, bringing trend into an IP, which is what you're doing with Chris. And we talked about this in the panel at Dingle about, you know, whether what comes first, the toy or the story and all that kind of stuff. So how did you guys end up meeting?
Pure fluke. Absolute fluke. It was, do you know what? It's funny. It was kind of one of those things I think that was meant to happen in a way, Gav. Like, so Gavin's, this is so Irish, by the way, right? Gavin's best friend is married to my best friend's sister.
That is so Irish. That is so Irish.
Right? And it doesn't even end there. And we were meant to meet years ago and it never happened. And my best buddy kept saying, you should meet this fella called Gavin Lawler. He's doing some good stuff. And I was like, all right, yeah. And then at my kid's football match, a dad and my kid's football match knew Gavin, like, I don't know how they even knew each other. Like, kind of, you didn't even really know each other that well. And he said, "Oh, you should meet this fella called Gavin Lawler." I was like, "Oh, here, I better reach out." So we reached out, and we kind of, it was weird, wasn't it? We didn't know what. We kind of sussed each other out for about a month because we didn't know what we
Eight
were going to talk about. Yeah. We didn't know what we were
we were
talking about.
intellectually sparring because we're so, like, as close as our worlds are, they're so freaking far apart. Like,
it's so weird because Gav thought I was coming to talk to him about Deddy Bears, and I thought he was coming to talk to me about an idea that I had. So we didn't know what we were actually talking about to begin with.
and Chris had a bloody accountant in the room as well. I was like, "What's going on here?"
Oh,
It's
so
really
funny.
explain for our listeners as well. Chris has a major background as a creator, showrunner, Jam Media. You know, he's working on a number of projects. He comes from the kids media world, right? Like you and me have been knocking around LinkedIn together, Chris, for probably
for a long
decade,
time.
right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you two just met through your best friend's mother's sister's wife.
cat's uncle. Yeah.
Seventh son of a seventh son.
Yeah.
It was a funny one, but like, I suppose what interested me about Chris was, like, I knew, I know this sounds really stupid, right? But I love intellectually sparring because I'm the type of human being that puts my hand up and kind of admits if I'm wrong, but I love the debate part in between. I'll fight my corner, and then at the end I'll go, "Okay, you won." Like, you know, in fairness, like, I'm that type of person. But when we got in with Chris and we were kind of back and forth, and I was like, "Holy crap, the way this guy thinks is just," I hadn't experienced it before because I'm so used to my own bubble, right? Like, I live in a bubble of creating an instantaneous trend, bringing it to market. If the IP is relatively good, we can have some conversations around your world, which is bolting in content. And it was just interesting to hear Chris's side of it. And, like, I think at the end of our second session together, in the middle of it, Chris was just like sketching. And at the end of the session, and it was only a chat session, and he just turns the page around and he goes, "What do you think about this for an idea?" And I was like, "Chris, what the
Don't worry,
I was
guys.
like,
This Media Club podcast is not listened to by kids. You can
right.
have
So I was like, "What the actual fuck is this?" And he's like, "Yeah, just something I was thinking of." Because I was showing Chris, and we did a lot of some work for the World Cup for tchotchke, cheap, in and out, pallet on the floor stuff in America. And like, one of them was called flag balls. They were little footballs that had flags on them. Nothing crazy good about that, but I was the first person that when you press it, it plays the national anthem. It was that simple, right? We sold hundreds of thousands, and it was that simple. All we did was press it, and everybody thought I was a freaking genius. I'm sitting there going, "What?" I was like, "This is shit." Like, but anyway, Chris kind of showed me a picture of an item. I'm not going to talk about the item, and I was just like, "Oh, whoa. Oh my God, like, there's something more about this guy. This guy could very easily live in my world, like, very easily." And then I suppose I got this feeling. I'm a very emotive person, so I only work with people that I can connect with. And I wouldn't say like emotion, like deep emotion. We have to hug before we work together. I'm saying just a feeling, I've gotta really trust. And I learned that the hard way, and that was through a lot of shit that happened in the Irish Ferry Door company, which at the time was a huge company. I know, with a massive valuation on the business. So there was still scars there. Walls were quite high. And Chris came in and just got a sledgehammer and broke those walls down. When I saw his talent, I was like, right, okay, Chris, forget about everything we're talking about. What can you do for Deddy Bears? Because at this point in time, Deddy Bears is 24 months in the marketplace. I think at the time we'd sold 2 or 3 million units. We were in all the major retailers. We were building fandom. We knew we had established a foothold in the cute, creepy collectibles. We had just won, I think, collectible toy of the year. We bet Pokemon, we bet Disney, we bet Just Play. Some of the big players who I really look up to. Like, I really get inspired from these guys. I wouldn't say the companies more so than some certain individuals within those companies inspire me. Like, I work with some of these guys, and they're just brilliant people and girls. So I just, again, found something at Chris. He broke the barriers down. I just said to him immediately, right, can we make a plan for Deddy Bears? Win, lose, or draw, I actually don't give a shit, Chris. I just want your brain in it. We sat in a room, and he spent then, like, he spent weeks just sitting in the. He set up a room downstairs in my office building, and I wouldn't even know he's there half the time. I just walk by and I'd be whistling, and then he'd be just walking in the fucking in the room, and then he'd come up at the end of the day and he might say, what do you think of this story? And I'd be just like, if the world finds out that I'm a fraud, like with my own brand, because this dude is just producing better shit than me. I was like, and that's the hardest thing for me to admit, is that somebody's better than you. It's the hardest thing for me. Like,
Yeah.
so I just said, you know what?
He's doing himself.
Go all in.
I'll interrupt a bit. Himself a disservice, to be fair. Now, I think, look, for me anyway, from my side, it was like looking at something that I just, when I first seen the Deddy Bears or heard the words Deddy Bears, I was like, fucking, that's a killer. That's a great name. Killer name. You know, no pun intended, but it was a killer name. It was so obvious. You know, it was just one of those things that was like,
you know what it means. You know what you can imagine.
yeah.
It.
It said exactly what it did on the tin, and then they come in their little coffins, and they were like so cute. But at the same time, like my kids were big into Wednesday, and even I shouldn't probably say this, but my 9-year-old at the time had just finished Stranger Things. Like, so, like, you know, all of these things that like kids are into, like that kind of like I kind of like think of Deddy Bears as like almost having one foot in the shadows and one foot in the warmest day possible. So like half of the thing is giving you a big warm hug, and the other half is like lurking in the shadows as this kind of
Being a bit
creepy,
weirdo.
cute thing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know, it just struck that, for me, it just struck that kind of sweet spot that I think kids are kind of interested in. Like they want to be like, you know, we're going to laugh them to death. That's kind of like where we're going with this. You know what I mean? It's a comedy, but at the same time, it's playing in that space where you can get frights and you can like kind of,
It kind of feels like a reflection of our relationship, Chris. It's just like fucking laughing and fucking humorous, I suppose. There's a lot of humor in what we do.
Yeah. We're trying to find the tone of it.
Where did Deddy Bears come from, Gavin? Like, what was the kind of origin story of it?
It was a 36-hour design frenzy. I'd as I said earlier, I was working with Walmart Canada at the time. We had pockets of success around creating Christmas brands. Got on really well with the buyer. She was a brilliant person and a visionary, and she just got me right. And anybody who gets me gets the best of me, is what I would say, right? So she was like, right, Gav, can you design me some brands for Halloween? So I came up like I think it was I remember the clock was on, like the chess players who were doing speed chess. It was like 36 hours. And I came up with 3 or 4 brands. Deddy Bears was one of them. And at the time, she didn't even choose it. She chose, I had another one called Little Frankensteins, or what was it, Dr. Fixums or something like that anyway. And she chose that one, but I was way out of my depth. It was too complex. The complexity of the artwork that I created was just, no. I was almost like I was just showing off to have it. Then I handed her, she goes, yeah, I'll take that. I was like, well, I can't actually do it. So by default, Deddy Bears got in. By default, like, there's a story behind that. We'll go into another time, but there was 86% sell through in its first season. That gave me like a green slip, a go card. That go card then got me into the biggest retailers on the planet, 50 countries, millions of units sold, fandom. We were able to kind of scale our marketing as we went, and we kind of hit that right too. So yeah, kind of that's how it started. It was 36 hours. It was first, I think I had the first 8 characters.
Yeah.
And my
through because you sold through like a small batch to begin with, but that ended up like, that was kind of a hairy moment as well, wasn't it? And then the sell through came.
Yeah, there was a very hairy moment. I mean, Walmart had run out of budget at the time, and I ended up selling them at, like, I think it was like a penny or a cent or 2 cents. Took all the risk myself, and it paid off. Thank God, you know. So, but yeah, it's an interesting story behind that, and I'm very proud that again, being Irish. Again, here's the emotive side or the emotional side, but that's my story, and it's like a badge of honor for me, because I genuinely took that risk. It seems like it was 100 years ago now, and would I take that risk? And now I'd probably crap the bed, right? I'd be like, but it's still part of my stories. I'm proud to be able to tell my kids. I'm proud to be able to talk about that. And as you alluded to at the start, it's a combination of right place, right time, and an absolute killer entrepreneurial attitude. And that's what I have. And like I said, I'm
Yeah.
crap at so much stuff. I'm terrible at being present for my family. There's lots of things where I suck, but we just happened. And my wife as well in this. My wife Eve is a creative director in the business and,
Yeah.
and works exceptionally close with Chris as well. She's a genius. Like, so
She's
it's
great.
kind of, yeah, it's kind of mixing that blend in and coming up with the magic, you know.
That's incredible. How much did you have an idea of the story and the universe around those characters at the start, or is that something that's really kind of grown out of this moment?
That's a really good question, and it's one that not many people ask in my world. So I'll answer it as best I possibly can. In my head, when I start an IP, it's gotta have potential to be more than just a toy on a shelf. It's gotta have the potential for story.
Yep.
So we always dip our toe in. We always give them bios, or we might develop a backstory or some type of story arc or some type of episodic 2-minute kind of piece that we know that we can jump into if there's success off the shelf. And it's so different to your world. So that's how I do. When I sit down to create, it's like, right, first thing, can this be a feature film? Can this be a Netflix? Can this be a short on YouTube? And if the answer is yes, I can typically run out of it from there and almost half build it to make sense in my world.
Yep.
Right, to get it to
Yeah,
where
yep.
like Deddy Bears is, get it to where some of my other IPs are. Like we have another incredible brand called Hugo the Unicorn, which is like a unicorn version of ET. And then we have another one called the Reindeer Feeder, who basically swaps position with Santa up and down the chimney. And when Santa comes down, he goes up and he feeds the reindeers, right? And there's so much good, healthy, honest stories. And that's why when Emily asked me down in Dingle, how important the story, this is kind of where the panel was discussing. I was like, look, I was on both sides of the fence because I really do see both sides. You can do it with story and you can do it without story.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense because I feel like a good toy or a good something, you kind of want to pass that baton to the kid so they'll continue the imaginative play themselves. So they need something
Yeah.
to kind of be there to be able to
1000%.
play with.
Andy,
Yeah.
this is not rocket science, Andy. The market tells us whether you have a brand or not. It's
Yep.
do you know how hard it is to get a group of people to buy 1 million pieces of something? It's 10 times, 15 times Croke Park filled, walking into a store, pulling up your product off a shelf and the till ringing. It's really freaking difficult to do that. The market tells us. Hence the reason why Chris is even entertaining assholes like me. We've got like it's sold millions of units. It makes sense. It has a fandom. In theory, if we execute the story part right, the people who traded dollars with my products in the stores will trade dollars with Netflix, or they will trade dollars with the feature film, or they will trade dollars with YouTube. That's the theory. It's connecting that and creating the marriage that
Yep.
makes sense. But the market tells us that there's an audience there. They're buying our shit, right? And they're
Yeah,
happy and they're
yeah.
playing.
The one thing that
I think that's that. To be fair, that's one thing that I touched on with you, Emily, and Dingle. Is like, from my side of it, it was like, okay, well, it felt like in our industry and our side, Andy, that like IP lived and died on content, and I feel
Yep.
in the new world, content should be there to support IP. It doesn't have to take all of the pressure all of the time. I mean, it can. I'm not saying it can't, but at the same time, there is cases where content is there to support. And if you already have a fandom in place, it's about then taking that into consideration. So for me, it was a completely different experience because I'm coming into something that already has, I don't know how many fans, but there's like 10 million units sold. So like I have to sit back and try to work out then, well, who are those people that are buying this? Because if we're going to make any IP or we're going to make any content, I need to make sure I'm speaking to the right audience. So it was really
Yep.
important for me to just actually shut up and say nothing for a while, and to just try to understand Gavin's business and understand who actually is buying these Deddy Bears. And the fascinating thing, just from a story perspective, was like me going to New York Toy Fair and just sitting there for a couple of days And like there's a couple of days, or there's a day on it where they let in all the influencers and fans and stuff like that, and just engaging with those people, because that's my way in. Like if I'm making content, they're the people that I have to bring on the journey with us. Like, and I think that's the difference when you're just creating IP on its, or content on its own. You're kind of just shouting into a void and trying to connect with somebody or anybody that you feel you should be connecting with. But this case, it was completely different. So it was really interesting just from a story perspective, how you could. But I think we have it's like, it's kind of like an honor to kind of like take on something like this, because you have to bring them with you. You can't just
Yeah.
forget about them. So everything that Gav has set in stone, and Aoife, it's almost like they're like the mom and dad of this thing, you know. But then the fans or the fandom are like really close relatives, and you know you can't just forget about them or not listen to them. So I think that's from a content perspective, it's really interesting, you know.
I
Yeah.
find it fascinating. I find your world, it's fascinating to me, because I can't understand how you guys put so much money into such a long build, and then when the build is done, you're like this, oh my God, your fingers are crossed. You're like, I hope it sells, or I hope people watch it, or I hope, like, our world, I guess what makes us successful is we can fire small bullets, right? Fire short bullets.
Yeah.
We can bring an idea to the market quickly, inexpensively, and we can, if it wins, it can win big, and if it fails, it can't hurt you.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And Gavin, but I think the traditional media has a lot to learn from your approach, particularly in this moment where I feel like that old model where you raised 7 million to do a series, that risk was often on the broadcasters or the distributors, not on the producers. And now we're moving into a world where the producers are taking more of that risk on themselves. So they kind of need to operate more like an entrepreneur like yourself, I think.
I mean, I'm almost afraid to give away secrets here, but I've aligned myself to the fact that, you know, your industry needs a little bit of help. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect in any stretch of the imagination, but what I am saying, and I said, I make this bold statement: when you guys figure out my world, people like me in my world are in trouble, and rightly so, because real stories, real storytellers, real script writers coming in and creating toys is it kind of feels like full circle. It kind of feels like you're the guys that should always have done it. That's what it feels like to me. It's like, why the hell would somebody else make something that came out of your mind all the way back here? It's just, it doesn't,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't, it's not full circle to me. It's like it breaks halfway.
I don't
but
know. I think. Sorry, go ahead, Emily.
No,
Go ahead.
I feel like that. Like one of the things we crystallized on the toy panel was that, like, you know, Toy Story, Toy Story, Toy Story, but actually the bottom line was connection and emotion, and both of those things do that, right?
Yeah.
They have the same outcome, if you know what I mean. So it makes sense that they're so aligned, and there's so much in common with, you know, when you're creating one versus when you're creating the other.
So your budgets run millions, right? So here's a prime example of what I would be doing, right? I would work with Chris or another or whatever it means. Hopefully it's always going to be Chris, right? And I would say, well, here's my concept for a toy. I want you to write 10 minutes of content, and we might spend 200 grand on it. And that's the risk, right? The 200 grand is mitigated by guaranteed placement of 400 or 500 grand. That 400 or 500 grand comes at a 50% margin. It's a 6-month trial period, and if it fails, everything is even, right? Perhaps
Yep.
even a small bit of profit. So that's the new world for me. And then
Yeah.
should the 200,000 investment into that piece of content work, immediately the green card is there to scale at retail, and you can then scale the Chris side of things. I know there's a little bit of reverse engineering in that, but I walk up to a buyer and I say, hi, this IP doesn't exist. Here's the idea. Here's a 30 seconds clip of what it's going to look like on YouTube. I want you to be my launch partner. We're going to guarantee you 5 million, 10 million views in the first 2 weeks. We're going to pay to play in that. We're not going to get them organic. It'll be a mix, but we're going to guarantee eyeballs on it. And if it checks hard. And it checks means if it sells. And that's the risks that the retailers are starting to take, because some of the Disney stuff that's gone out is flopping. Some of the Mattel stuff that goes out, some of the Moose, all these massive big guys. Not everything works, right? Not everything works. Consumers are looking for choice. They're looking for variances in price points. And honestly, they're looking for something to hang off their bag clip. And Chris taught me this. I love this saying because it's so true. And it's only when Chris said it to me, I started to change and shape IPs in a different way. The consumers, they want to hang out with their characters.
Yeah.
The story genuinely on a lot of occasions comes second. If they hang out with their characters, then you can build a story and build a franchise.
Yeah, I think that was what, like, we were all having the chat about, like, story or toys first, and really character is the one thing that, you know, along with, like, obviously connecting emotionally with things, but, like, it's always a character. Everybody goes back for character. The best movies in the world, the best shows in the world, you go back, you don't go back for plot. Like, and I'm not saying plot doesn't matter. It's massively important in storytelling, as we all know. But, like, everybody goes back to hang out with characters. And I think when a kid picks up a toy, they go to hang out with that character. And I think that's the one thing that connects, just from a character perspective in an IP, is kind of like where we're going with the Deddy Bears, is like, you know, why do people constantly want to hang out with these cute, weird characters? But it's character. It's always character from my side, you know?
Yeah.
You said that
Absolutely.
Chris, and, you know, because he said the plot's only relevant the first time you watch it. The next time around, you know the plot, right? Like you say, you're going back to hang out with those characters. So what's on the plan then for Deddy Bears from a content point of view? What are you guys cooking up?
So we're currently, we're in production. We're just wrapping up our first kind of season on YouTube. We've got 10 minutes of content coming out this summer. Obviously, then once the wheel starts spinning, we're going to keep going and keep on producing, hopefully, as long as it does well. Again, it's one of those things that, like, we don't know. Hopefully it'll do well. And in the meantime, we've been developing a feature film. So we've been getting quite a lot of interest. I mean, it's one of those things that it's like a unicorn at the moment. It's a brand that's selling, and, like, you know, 10 million units in less than 3 years is massive, you know. From a story perspective, again, it was just really interesting to just, like, not do too much to begin with, just try and understand the brand, understand our way in. We now know, like, who our audience is. So that was really helpful just from an observational point of view for the first 6 months or so, kind of understanding that. And then, we're currently getting ready to pitch in LA in the next couple of weeks. We've had a couple of calls from studios. We started conversations last October, Gav, was, or September, whenever LA Toy Fair was. And then, so we're just following up now in the next couple of weeks with some of the studios. So it's good.
We're
It's
like
really
Pinky
exciting.
and the Brain. We're going to take over the world.
What was, when you were talking about the audience before, was there any surprises for you in that kind of research
Massively.
period where you were really trying to get to know the audience?
Oh, incredibly. Like, what
was the big surprise, do you think?
It's actually such a diverse group of people that are collecting these. We've got blind bags that, like, you know, anywhere from 5 to 9-year-olds collecting these little boys. And then when you go on to the bigger ones, the bigger plushes, we're getting like 13 to like 29-year-old females who are just loving these characters and actually taking care of them, like actually wanting to, like, look after them and care for these bears. And it's weird, like, just from a collector's, just understanding the collector's point of view, how important the packaging is to the collectors. Like, that blew my mind. Like, packaging is a huge thing. The fact that they all come from these coffins and have death certificates, and the level of, like, kind of, I guess, the depth of connection from the death certificates, which sounds weird, but, like, they want to know more about their past. They want to know where they came from.
Right.
from a content point of view, it's like reverse engineering and world building the history and the lore and the mythology surrounding the Deddy Bears. Because we've got Deddy Bears, like, you know, from the Egyptian period. It's like a character called Bundle who, like, literally lived in the time of the pyramids being built. Like, you know, so that's how far they go back. So there's these kind of like ancient lores attached to some, and then some are more modern, like, you know, skid mark who got run over by a truck. Like, so there's all these kind of levels and depth to them, which is great. Like, it's great for somebody like me to be able to play in, because it just gives me a really nice sandbox to kind of like know
Yeah,
little bits about each character, but not too much. So it allows me to kind of expand on them as well, you know. So it's great from a
absolutely.
content point of view.
The day
And
the
you're
day of
really
the
serving the fandom there, aren't you, as well?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think like I said, they own it. They were here before me, you know, and they connected before me. So like I have to be respectful of the fandom, which is great. And I think, like, look, we all know that's the way the business is at the moment. Is like, you know, you're a fool to ignore fandom. You can't ignore it. Like, it's almost like if you have it, it's like you've got a Willy Wonka golden ticket. Like, you know what I mean? It's at your own peril to kind of to not have them as part of the conversation. And I think that's why was really just from a different perspective for me developing this product was like actually just listening a lot. Like, I think you have to listen and engage with them, you know. So it's been great. Like even just for example, we launched as kind of as a joke. Aoife came up with the great idea. It was like, why don't we have a Giphy page? And we were like,
Mm.
yeah, why don't we have a Giphy page? So we went and just hired a couple of animators. I bought a couple of licenses of you know of what did I buy? We did it in Moho, and just bought Moho, couple of licenses, got a rigger, rigged all the characters, animated them. We launched the Giphy page a couple of weeks ago. In the first 48, had 350,000 shares on our Giphy page, and then 2 weeks in, we're over. I think we're at like 2.5 million Giphy shares. And it's like,
Wow.
how did like how?
Chris, were you asleep for the last week, Chris? It's at 10 million.
No, I was in New York. Oh, really? Sorry, I was in New York. So there you go.
Well, we went viral on April Fool's Day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
got
it's
to the
so
front page of Gippies on April Fool's Day. It's absolutely insane.
and I guess that's like for me. Like again, I was away all week last week in New York, so I didn't realize that. But yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, like there's actually people that are digging this, like that are kids and adults. I don't know. Like it's just a weird moment where we know we have this brand, like, and like Gav didn't even really touch on it. Like there's book deals. We've been offered some book deals and stage shows, and there seems to be like a, I don't know, it's having its moment, and it feels like it needs to be protected now. And I guess just
Yeah.
from our goals going forward, it's like making sure we get the right partners. It's not a money grab, because the thing is already selling. It's not like, and it's a different hat where when you're a producer on our side, which Andy, I'm sure you'll know yourself, is like you're always looking for those extra deals to kind of like bump up your budget and to get you there to make your product. Whereas we don't have that problem, because the IP is
Yeah. What a
making money.
gift.
So it's exactly, so it feels like now it's like, okay, well, it's the right people. It has to be the right people in, because again, we have to protect it, and it's not even protecting us or the brand itself. It's almost protecting the fandom and making sure that they're going with it as well. They have to buy into the fandom as much as the product, you know. So yeah, it's really special. It's important that we get the right people involved.
A lot of sense. I feel like
Amazing.
if like fandom is like nearly the opposite of broadcast, if you know what I mean. We used to broadcast TV shows, used to like edict to people, you know, what you're watching and do you want, you know, it's one way. It's a one-way street. Whereas fandom is the opposite of that, right? It's getting the
It's
feedback
conversation.
right away. You know,
Yeah.
the Giphy thing is going mad. You know that the
Yeah.
products are selling. And it's, you know, you're like to see a bit more bulletproof there because you've got the proof of concept.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
most kind of powerful feedback group and the most amazing marketing team that you've got on your
Yeah,
side.
and I think
Amazing.
if you respect them, like I think if you go into that conversation open, they kind of like they love the ownership. They want to help you build it. I think that's the thing, is like that they're there to help. They're not there to like kind of like, you know, stop you doing things. It's just about having your ears open and listening, I guess, you know.
It's just going back to something Andy said earlier on. Like 10 years ago, you would have had to be walking to Temple Bar into an alternative type of store and buy something like a Deddy Bear. And this is what this is the new world that we live in, that I feel that your world hasn't caught up with yet. Is
I think that's right.
Walmart, Target, Smith's, Five Below, Amazon. The alternative now is really cool and really acceptable for family moments. And that's where we are finding our pockets of success. If you can identify that, there's two things you need. And I often say this, and it sounds stupid, but it's, you know, everybody talks about a gap in the market. Is there room for a creepy series or a creepy feature? More importantly, is there a market in the gap? Is there kids and families who are willing to spend money? So, and this is what you guys are missing. It's like, it's there, it's in front of us. Stranger Things, Five Nights at Freddy, Wednesday Addams, all these things have completely normalized what used to be deemed alternative, and it's extracting cash from people's pockets, creating great family moments. And this is what Chris, I feel, sees. I feel he sees this, and that's why I think we're a good partnership, because we're aligned to the strategy of the new world.
But saying that as well, Gav, I do think there's an authenticity there. Like, I think that's the, like, Deddy Bears comes from you and Aoife. Like that alternative is you. And I think it's because no edges were knocked off it, and you're able to get to market with a true, authentic kind of vision for it. It helped.
Yeah, it was some crack start now. It was some crack.
No, and I do.
I'm Gavin
No,
from
and
the
I do
Irish
believe.
Company. Come buy my Deddy Bears.
No. I do think it's I think there's an authenticity there that, like, in your world didn't knock off edges, and I think it's that's the new world, is that, like, that connection. I think if you can cut through and be as true as you can, you don't realize how many people in the world are like you, and how many people are going to connect to the same things you're connecting to without any of those edges cut off. And I think that's how you hit those little pockets of fandom that can then grow and more people fall into it, like, organically.
Well, Chris, you're 100% right, Chris. There's psychology at play here, and we discussed this as well, guys. Deddy Bears. If you really analyze this, take the Deddy Bears, move it here. What is it? It's everybody in the world has felt rejection. Everybody in the world has felt at some point in their life like they weren't enough. This is the Deddy. This is when you think about the IP. How do we connect that emotion to the human being? Because everybody has felt vulnerable. The Deddy Bears are completely vulnerable. It's like they are not supposed to exist in society. And most of us, when we feel like that, we feel that way. So that's why it's successful. That is the backstory. That is the emotion coming out in the bear that people recognize.
And I also think maybe the vulnerability is empowering for the people that buy the Deddy Bears as well, because
it's a statement.
There's something about taking the scariest
thing and making it cute. They clip this to their bag, and it's like a bulletproof vest, and that's weird. But it's okay. It's how people protect themselves, and at the same time giving themselves a dopamine hit. We all need it.
Yeah. I also feel, back to Chris's point about edges, though, I feel like if corporate media had come up with this, the edges would have been buffed off, right? Like, it was
completely.
do you know what I mean? You can see it. We've all seen it done.
The name alone wouldn't have worked. They'd have gone, exactly. That's a really good name, but, like, can we just call them something else?
Yeah, no, that won't get by corporate brand management. Listen, lads, it's really good to chat to you. Best luck in LA Toy previews the next few weeks. And come back and update us. Let us know how it goes. We're very interested to hear the story of Deddy Bears.
Thank you
Thanks for having us.
Questions.
Yeah, awesome. Want to do the sign off, Andy?
Okay, so thanks very much, Gavin and Chris. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that chat. I hope you guys enjoyed listening at home. Please like and subscribe. and listen to us wherever you get your podcast. And we'll see you guys next week.